And Joyce, it strikes me that what Eugene just said there comports with the statement we saw from the president's personal attorney about sort of the tension between transparency and the needs of making sure that an investigation is honored, that the guardrails are there. I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about that tension and also about what you're watching for next in the special counsel's investigation.
Right. So I'm sure the Biden folks are extremely concerned about how this news leaked out in the first place. You'll recall that in the Trump classified documents investigation, the only reason that the public learned that something was going on was that despite the fact that the FBI had bent over backwards to conceal the fact that they were conducting a search pursuant to a federal judge's search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, where agents had actually tried to dress like Mar-a-Lago guests to blend in, the public only became aware of that because Trump himself announced it. Trump filed the lawsuit that the 11th Circuit ultimately found was essentially frivolous. But in the course of litigating that case, a lot of details came out. So here we are in the Biden setting where early on in an investigation involving classified documents, what you really want is a moment of space where it doesn't become public so people can understand what the facts are and assess any risk. And here they're having to deal with news of an investigation that somehow became public. We don't yet know exactly how that happened. So that, of course, puts them on the back foot from the get-go. Now we're into the special counsel process, and hopefully that will be conducted without any more leaks. What will be important here will be for the special counsel to, get his hands on the basics, right? What happened? Who was responsible? When did it happen? Why were these documents still there? And perhaps most importantly, did anyone, including the current president, know that they were where they were? So this involves lots of interviews with people. We've already seen some reporting that suggests that Biden aides have voluntarily spoken with DOJ investigators. That's very refreshing when you think about the number of subpoena battles that have had to be fought within the Trump camp to get testimony from fact witnesses. I would expect the special counsel's case to proceed pretty much like any other sort of criminal investigation, with cooperative witnesses and prosecutors and investigators who are trying to decide whether criminal conduct occurred or not. It looks pretty simple. If the facts don't change from what we know now, it's very unlikely that there would be any kind of charges.
Charlie, I've only got about a minute left, but I do want to ask you, it struck me as I was reading the title of your book about presidential authority and secrecy, how relevant that feels in this moment, especially given what Congressman Raskin was saying there. Like, of course, people just want to know about these documents. They want to understand the way that these documents are handled. And, I understand we're going to have a conversation about the politics of this, about the legality of this. When you zoom out, I think there are a lot of people who just have bigger questions about how these documents are handled, period. And I wonder for you, as someone who's become an issue area expert on this, what that conversation needs to be and what that conversation needs to look like.
Well, I would just say in that space, one of the most interesting things, even I, as someone who's written a book like that, or a couple books like that, learned in the course of this and the Mar-a-Lago documents investigation and coverage is just how chaotic, to some extent, the government's classified document system is. I sort of had in the back of my head, without ever thinking about it, that they must know what classified documents exist. And then they can, when the National Archives looks at it at White House's files, they can say, wait, we've got 1 through 99, but what about this 100th one? It's not here. It's missing. Let's go find it. And it turns out that's just not how it is. When people create documents that have classified information, there is no central repository list where that data is saved as a database. No one knows what classified documents are out there. So if you have them and you're a government official, there's rules for how you transport it, how you store it, who you're allowed to tell it to, and who you're not. But there is a certain sense of fog over all of this. And so once you understand that, you can see how in the chaos of either the Trump White House or the Biden Obama White House, or probably all the other presidents too, when things are packed up, stuff is getting out where it shouldn't have gone. And that's not really surprising. What matters is what happens if and when it's found, and whether people cooperate in getting it back to where it should go, or try to hold on to it and resist even subpoenas demanding them back.